After 2 days, Lu Mu Yen followed Lu Mu Bai back to the Empire Academy. In the most ancient hall of the academy, Principal Ruan Li and several other instructors were already seated. Opposite them were 9 students. Mu Bai, Mu Yen, you've both come. Sit. Ruan Li said with a gentle smile on his face and gestured for them to take a seat. After the two sat down, Ruan Li sat properly upright and looked at the 11 people seriously, addressing them. Bringing you all here today is so that we can discuss the situation with the trial this time. The trial after this grand competition is something different from what occurs after the grand competition in previous years and was exceptionally important. Ruan Li emphasized. You should all know that Yanzhou Kingdom isn't the only kingdom on Tianling continent. There are also thousands, even tens of thousands of large and small kingdoms. But aside from these kingdoms, there are also super distinguished clans and sects that control and distribute the resources on this continent. The most powerful entities on this continent are the 6 great sects. The 10 distinguished spirit sword clans of the eastern region is in fact only at the very bottom of the continent's distinguished clans. Gasp. The 11 people present could all be regarded as those favored by the heavens, but after hearing this news, some still couldn't help but be stumped for words. The eastern region ranks last among the 4 major regions in terms of overall strength, so our Yanzhou Kingdom is an extremely unremarkable existence on Tianling continent. Ruan Li paused, then spoke with gravity, and although you're all the most outstanding figures amongst the younger generation of Yanzhou Kingdom, and could be regarded as the empire's geniuses amongst this generation, but compared to the similar-aged sword masters of other larger kingdoms, you guys don't count for much, and in fact, is also at the very bottom. It's not to say that your natural endowments are worser than them, but you fall short on the resources that you're provided with compared to theirs by a great amount. That's why I hope you guys are fair to yourselves and not be disheartened. You'll only be able to improve if you attempt to pursue those that are stronger than yourselves. There was encouragement in Ruan Li's eyes. Principal, you explaining all these things about the continent to us, is there any special meaning to it? A young man of around 20 amongst the 11 students asked with confusion and worry. Every 20 years there'll be a continental tournament for Hegemony 1, and next year was precisely the beginning of the new round of the tournament for Hegemony. All the kingdoms in the 4 major regions are given quotas, and our Yanzhou Kingdom also received 6 places. Seeing the various expressions amongst the 11 people, with some even secretly hiding some worry, Ruan Li continued, these 6 places were the total number of places given to Yanzhou Kingdom and isn't to be chosen amongst only you guys. The pupils of the imperial family and Yanzhou Kingdom's other distinguished clans will also participate in the trial this time, and the 6 people participating in the continental tournament for hegemony will be chosen amongst all of you. Then doesn't that mean we all have a chance, but vice versa, it was also possible none of us will be chosen? Another young woman asked anxiously. She was the winner of the senior student competition of the Earth class, but her strength was already relatively weaker than the rest. If they had to compete with the imperial family to obtain a spot, then there was very little hope. That's only natural. The trial this time is basically an indirect selection trial. You must all take this seriously and cherish this opportunity. He didn't want to give a complete blow to the students' confidence, so added, comforting, each one of you has a chance. Don't be discouraged. It isn't impossible for you to have a fortuitous encounter during the trial and soar high into the sky too. After hearing Ruan Li's words, the students' eyes that were dim from being disheartened, lit up. That's right, they already rose above others during the grand competition, who knew who'd win one of the 6 places in the future. On the other hand, Lu Mu Yen and Lu Mu Bai didn't reveal much emotion. Their eyes remained indifferent throughout, which made the superiors of the academy think highly of them again. Qi Yixian's expression was also rather calm, and the ripples in his eyes had been concealed. Amongst the 11 people, he was also one of the students that Ruan Li and the other superiors were very optimistic about. Principal, are there any benefits in participating in the trial and obtaining a place in the continental tournament for hegemony? A heaven-class student named Fu Chen, whose strength was second to Lu Mu Bai, asked. The result of the continental tournament for hegemony directly affected the allocation of the continent's resources in the future 20 years. If you could advance to the top 100, then Yanzhou Kingdom would be allocated even more resources. Ruan Li didn't conceal anything and continued to say, if you receive a good result, the empire will also gift you generous rewards. Seeing the student's bright eyes, he added with a smile, however, the most precious aspect for the players of the continental tournament for hegemony aren't the rewards from the empire, but instead, the chance to join Tianling continent's 6 great sects. That was the most tempting. What? We can actually join the 6 great sects. Among the 11 people, a person with a rather deep, solid background, Ji Han-su, couldn't help but exclaim. In his clan's secret manual, there were more or less some records on the structure of Tianling continent, and within, there were records of the most superior forces, the 6 great sects. Even if one had excelling natural endowments, wanting to join the sects were as hard as ascending to the heavens. Who knew that the grand competition this time was actually linked to the 6 great sects? The 6 great sects' origins flows back long into the distant past, and their foundation and background was something that other distinguished clans and empires can't compare to. All the pupils beneath them have extraordinary talents. Meanwhile, the continental tournament for hegemony was precisely one of their ways of gathering excelling pupils. After all, to be able to excel and distinguish oneself in the top 100, above the tens of thousands of talented seeded players, they were definitely worthy of raising. Ruan Li stroked his beard as he explained. Everyone desired that their own kingdom's seeded players could enter into the top 100 and receive the welcome token from the 6 great sects. Lu Muyen caught onto the yearning in Ruan Li's eyes, then raised an eyebrow and asked, Principal, then within all the previous continental tournament for hegemonies, did our Yenzhou kingdom have any seeded players enter into the top 100? Ruan Li didn't think that Lu Muyen would ask such an incisive question, was fazed for a moment, then smiled in embarrassment, none. She guessed that was how it was, paused, then asked, then the best result is? Cough cough, seeing that everyone was staring at him, Ruan Li coughed dryly, the best result is at 2100. Isn't the principal just cheating people? The best result was only at 2100, then how much of a chance did they have to advance to the top 100? However, Lu Muyen's eyes revealed fiery flames. The more challenging something was, the more interesting it was, and the more interested she was in it. Her lips rose and said domineeringly and confidently, the individual's effort is the decisive factor, humans will definitely triumph over the heavens 3. Let's create a legend of Yenzhou Kingdom. Good. Ambitious. Hearing Lu Muyen's passionate words, Ruan Li couldn't resist slamming his palm down on the table. You should all participate in the selection trial with such an attitude. I hope that in the continental tournament for hegemony this time, there'll be someone amongst you guys who'll successfully obtain the welcome token from one of the 6 great sects. Except for Lu Mubai and Qi Yixian, the others' foreheads were filled with deep creases as they furrowed their brows. Wasn't Lu Muyen a bit too arrogant? As the winner of the freshman Earth class, she couldn't even compare to them, so how could she create Yenzhou Kingdom's legend? Was it really fine for the principal to be agreeing so blindly? But it was undeniable that, after hearing Lu Muyen's words, a passionate desire and motivation couldn't help but rise in their hearts, and they began to look forward to the upcoming selection trial. Qi Yixian looked deeply at Lu Muyen that glowed with pride and vigor. Right now, there was some sort of charm that exuded from her which constantly made people inadvertently convinced. That sort of domineering, unbridled, and bold temperament made his heart ceaselessly turbulent and be infatuated with her. It was more and more impossible to retrieve his gaze upon her, and he only desired to hide her away, letting her shine bright only for him. Translated product by Mayar Come True. After Ruan Li explained the situation, he introduced them to the instructor who would lead them in the trial. In this trial, the academy will send 3 instructors to lead the team, namely Lan Si, Ji Xian, and Hu Fei. Ruan Li pointed to the 3 people beside him and introduced them one by one. The 11 people nodded in greeting. The fact that the academy sent Lan Si as the team's head instructor meant they really attached great importance to the selection trial. In the next month, we're very happy to be your team's lead instructors. On Lan Si's gentle, handsome face was a smile like the spring breeze. Then he blinked at the several people playfully, but we won't go easy on you guys. The several people were mesmerized by Lan Si's gentle smile, and they were very grateful that he was the head instructor this time. Lu Muyen, however, weighed him out in her heart. Lan Si definitely wasn't as gentle as he appeared on the surface. This person was wearing a mask. Principal, where are we going for the trial? Lu Mubai asked. When faced with Lu Mubai, Ruan Li's attitude was extremely nice. This time, the trial sites set in the glacial mountain range. Aside for the 2 trial teams of Yenzhou Kingdom, the 10 distinguished clans of the eastern region also have their own trials in the glacial mountain range. They're participating in the selection trials with us? Lu Mubei's eyes revealed slight surprise. No. Their trial standards and criteria are even harder than yours, but it's inevitable that your 2 parties will meet. At that time, keep a low profile and don't cause trouble. Ruan Li said seriously. Even the Empire's imperial family didn't dare provoke the core children of the 10 distinguished clans. Then is the trial team selected by the Empire's imperial family going with us? A student asked. Ruan Li nodded, of course. Your 2 teams have to compete for those 6 spots together. For the sake of fairness, all trial missions are the same. Can we form an alliance with each other? Fu Chen thought for a bit then asked. No matter what methods you use, as long as it doesn't endanger the lives of the people who participate in the trials together, then it's fine. Ruan Li took a sip of tea and cautioned them. There were once 2 teams who participated in the trials that worked together at the beginning to deal with another team, so you must be careful. Of course, you'd all have to work together in the beginning, otherwise what awaits is only elimination. Then Ruan Li answered the questions of a few other students. Seeing that they had spent quite some time here, he knocked his finger on the desk and said, it's getting late. You should all go back and rest first. Report to the academy after 3 days. The 3 instructors will lead you to the glacial mountain range to join the imperial team. Yes, principal. The 11 people stood up and prepared to leave. Except the moment Lu Muyen turned around, she heard Ruan Li's telepathic voice. Come find me later. Lu Muyen's steps paused. Although she didn't know why the principal looked for her, but she nodded slightly to indicate that she knew. After leaving the hall together, Qi Yixian walked to Lu Muyen and his eyes were softer than ever. Muyen, let's team up during the trial. No need. Lu Muyen was a little surprised by Qi Yixian's attitude, but didn't want to have anything to do with him, so she refused without hesitation. Qi Yixian's brows furrowed together. He initially thought that after making such a request, Lu Muyen would be very happy like usual, and would agree, but he didn't expect to be rejected. A sudden panic rose in his heart. Something felt like it had changed. He could potentially be losing something important, but he couldn't catch on to what this inexplicable feeling was. You'd be safer with me. Although he was dissatisfied by Lu Muyen's refusal, but he urgently wanted to bound himself with Lu Muyen from the bottom of his heart, so he said with a stiff expression, holding back his feelings. Lu Mubei's indifferent eyes were dyed with slight unhappiness. He stood in front of Lu Muyen and blocked Qi Yixian's vision, speaking neither heavily nor lightly. My little sister naturally has my protection, so I won't bother Sir Qi. After he finished speaking, he didn't care about Qi Yixian's reaction and pulled Lu Muyen to leave. When his younger sister loved Qi Yixian so deeply that she would even die for him, that man didn't cherish it. Now that he discovered how good his treasured younger sister was, he wanted her back. Humph, how could there be such a convenient thing? Lu Muyen casually glanced at Qi Yixian, whose face was half stiff and blue. Her lips raised into a very shallow arc, and she passed him with her eldest brother. Qi Yixian stared at the backs of the brother and sister leaving, face dark and gaze obscure. Who knew what he was thinking? Big brother, the principal told me telepathically to go and find him just now. After walking for a while, Lu Muyen grabbed Lu Mubei's arm and said. Lu Mubai didn't know why the principal wanted to find his younger sister, but it wouldn't be something bad. You can go, they'll wait for you in the small building where you live to go home together. Alright. When Lu Muyen returned to the hall again, there were only the two brothers, Ruan Li and Ruan Yang, sitting on the main seats. Principal, did you need me for something? Lu Muyen walked in front of the two and asked with a smile. Indeed. Ruan Li took out two brocade boxes from his interspatial ring, handed them to Lu Muyen and said, these two things are the prizes for the winner of the Earth class. Do you like it? Lu Muyen didn't expect the academy to give her bonus rewards, but she wasn't ceremonious either, and opened the box in front of the two. The inner layer of the first box was made of millennial profound ice, and within there was what appeared to be an aged 7-leaf ginseng. A hint of joy flashed past Lu Muyen's eyes. She truly was lucky this time. One of the three main ingredients for the Foundation Establishment pill, the purple monkey flower, had already been won by her from the last auction, and now she obtained the 7-leaf ginseng. Meanwhile, she could take advantage of the trial this time to find the deep orchid. She believed that it wouldn't take long before she could gather and refine the spiritual herbs required for the Foundation Establishment pill. Once she advanced to the Foundation Establishment stage, her strength would greatly improve, and she'd have more confidence for the continental tournament for hegemony. Lu Muyen's eyes were as bright as the stars, and she clenched her hands into fists tightly, thinking about how she must refine the Foundation Establishment pill before the continental tournament for hegemony. She closed the box containing the 7-leaf ginseng, then opened the other box. Inside was a scarlet gold whip. On the whip, there were faint fluctuations of spiritual energy, indicating that it was a middle-quality spirit treasure. I obtained this long whip by accident. I found that you didn't like using swords too much, so I thought to gift this to you. Alchemist Ruan Yang, who sat next to Ruan Li, explained in a good mood upon seeing Lu Muyen's dazed expression when seeing the long whip. Lu Muyen closed the brocade box, thought a moment, then smiled and said, I thank Principal and Alchemist Ruan for your kindness. Muyen accepts. I do indeed need the 7-leaf ginseng, so I will accept, but forgive me as I dare not take this long whip. She really did like this scarlet gold whip, but she shouldn't accept a reward when it wasn't deserved. She felt that it wasn't so simple for Ruan Yang to gift her this spirit treasure. Ruan Yang didn't expect Lu Muyen to reject such benefits. His desire to accept her as his disciple grew even stronger, and a more sincere smile rose on his face. This spirit treasure is a gift for you. Why, do you not like it? Lu Muyen had a wealth of experience, and she was very accurate in her analysis of a person. She knew that Ruan Yang wasn't a scheming person, and was instead upright, so she didn't want to speak in circles. Elder Yang, it's not that I don't like this magic treasure, but I did nothing to deserve this reward. Why don't you speak directly of the purpose of finding me today? She could tell that the main person that looked for her today was Ruan Yang. Straightforward. Ruan Li liked to deal with straightforward people. He stroked his red beard with a look as if he was thirsting for water. Lu girl, you're born to be an alchemist with such skillful use of fire elemental energy. Are you interested in becoming a disciple of mine? As long as you become my disciple, I'll definitely do my best to teach you, and you can use the resources of the academy as you wish. In order to be able to keep the good seedling, Ruan Yang added. The resources of the academy could be used by her as she wishes? The corners of Ruan Li's mouth twitched. He knew just how ruthless this girl was in terms of cheating people of their things. Lu Muyen didn't expect that Ruan Yang actually wanted to take her in as a disciple. She put away the surprise in her heart, then politely refused, apologies, Elder Yang. I have already accepted a senior as my master in the Blazing Mountain Range, and without his permission, I dare not become a disciple of another person. Her alchemy attainments were probably pretty well matched with even the best alchemists on Tianling continent. She also owned countless peerless pill formulas, so Ruan Yang couldn't teach her anything. Not to mention, her aspirations didn't end at Yenzhou Kingdom, so it was even more impossible for her to recognize Ruan Yang as her master. In that case, I won't force it. Ruan Yang revealed some disappointment. But after thinking about it, he smiled and said, you like this spirit treasure, but you don't want to take it for no reason. Then how about we make a deal? What deal? Lu Muyen asked. How about you give me 2 of your energy-nourishing pills? Last time, the energy-nourishing pills that Lu Muyen gave Yun Tianchen were given to the enshrined alchemist of the imperial family to research. But Ruan Yang was itching with interest, so even though he couldn't gain a disciple, he thought to exchange 2 pills to research. Of course, it wasn't that he didn't want the marrow cleansing pill, but a middle-grade spirit treasure's value simply couldn't be compared to the marrow cleansing pill's value, and he didn't want to be forceful even more. When Lu Muyen's master appeared, then he would pay him a personal visit to discuss the matter. Lu Muyen nodded and directly took out a bottle of energy-nourishing pills to hand over. When Ruanli took the energy-nourishing pills, she unceremoniously put away the scarlet gold whip. Before she could refine her own natal magic treasure, this long whip was the only spirit treasure that caught her eyes. In this deal, she profited. After extracting some more information about the continental tournament for hegemony from Ruanli, and then chatting a little more with the two, Lu Muyen left the hall with a bright smile. After she left completely, Ruanli played with the teacup in his hand and said, "What do you think of this girl?" "Not bad. She's a wonderful mold that could be sculpted one. But with her talent, I'm afraid that she wouldn't be limited within Yanzhou Kingdom's skies and land. The outside world was more suitable for her." Ruanyang said after pausing for a moment. While his temper was straightforward, he wasn't stupid. The little girl of the Lu clan wasn't simple at all. I have a feeling that she'd be able to stand out in the selection trial this time." Ruanli stared at the door not far away with a look of expectation in his eyes. "Let's wait and see." Ruanyang nodded. He was also slightly anticipating Lu Muyan's performance in the selection trial. The moment Lu Muyan and Lu Mubai arrived back home, they were welcomed by a beautiful married woman. "Yenner." The beautiful married woman walked quickly towards Lu Muyan and pulled her into an embrace, her eyes layered with a thin mist. "Mother." Lu Muyan felt the other party's body temperature and her heart trembled, a warmth rising in her smile. Ling Yu Xian quickly wiped the tears from the corner of her eyes and checked her daughter all around. This time, as an issue had popped up, she returned to her natal home, but who would have thought that she missed her daughter's growth? She truly felt regretful. Yenner truly has grown up. Lu Muyan felt that her mother was very strong on the outside, but the moment she was in front of her, it was as if she had turned into water too. She couldn't bear the teary eyes and cast a look at Lu Mubai beside her for help. Lu Mubai chuckled gently, looked at Ling Yu Xian softly and said, "Mother, what's going on at maternal grandfather's house?" Speaking of her natal home, Ling Yuzin's arched eyebrows furrowed and sighed. "Your maternal grandfather was injured, but now he's recovered a lot. It's just that the Shui clan is truly pushing it too far. They actually cooperated with the Murong clan to suppress the Ling clan." A layer of ice formed in her eyes. The Shui clan's youngest daughter's very talented. "I heard that Shelby admitted to a sect after participating in the tournament for hegemony, and also used that to personally come and annul the engagement with Fei Yang. Maternal grandpa was injured? Fei Yang's engagement was also annulled?" A killing intent flashed past Lu Mubei's eyes. "Yeah. Your maternal grandfather was injured by a high-level sword monarch some time ago. He hid it before because he's afraid that you'd all be worried. Fei Yang hadn't left his house ever since that incident. If Shui Ling wanted to sincerely annul the engagement before, the Ling clan wouldn't force the engagement either, but this she was slapping the Ling clan's face on purpose, in public, by coming with so many people to do so. Fei Yang, that child, has always been sensitive, and even if he always has a smile, I'm afraid that he's feeling extremely unhappy inside." When Ling Yu Xian thought of her nephew, she felt extremely sad. In Lu Muyan's memory, her maternal grandpa was a very loving and kind elder. Even if she was trash, he didn't dislike her and loved her very much. Ling Fei Yang was her elder cousin, and different to Lu Mubei's indifference and serenity, his temperament was gentle from the inside to the outside, and also treated her extremely well. As far as she knew, the Ling clan was one of the 10 distinguished spirit sword clans, and, previously, their clan's strength could rank in the top 5. But 10 years ago, her genius maternal uncle that once shocked and amazed the entire Tianling continent disappeared when exploring a secret realm and hadn't returned since. His life or death was unknown. The sword sovereign ancestor of the Ling clan was in life or death seclusion and hadn't appeared in more than 20 years. No one knew if he had advanced or not. 6 years ago, her cousin, Ling Fei Yang, was seriously injured because he offended a devil cultivator for Shui Ling. What's more, his legs were poisoned and became immovable due to that incident. The Ling clan that was already experiencing frost being added to Snow 3, was then jointly suppressed by the Murong clan and the Xian clan who had risen to power after the Ling clan. Now they were backstabbed by the Shui clan that always had a good relationship with the Ling clan. The clan's strength had greatly decreased and was now barely at the end of the ranking of the 10 distinguished clans. Annulling the engagement with such an ungrateful woman is good. Lu Mubai sneered. When his younger cousin acted to protect Shui Ling that time, it was because she was his betrothed. Who knew that that woman would be this snobbish? It didn't matter that she didn't remember the kindness, yet now she dropped stones onto someone who had fallen into a well, for it was truly despicable. Lu Muyen pursed her lips, and a layer of cold light overflowed from the depths of her eyes. Murong clan, Xian clan and the Shui clan, she noted them down. Mother, elder cousin still can't move his legs now? Lu Muyen remembered that Ling Fei Yang was also a proud child favored by the heavens. However, now that he couldn't walk, they didn't know whether her eldest maternal uncle was alive or not, and with the Ling clan in such danger, he must be feeling extreme pressure. Yeah. The poison in his body couldn't be cured even after inviting numerous alchemists and physicians. That devil cultivator's also dead. Who knows how much more torture Fei Yang that child must endure. Ling Yuzin's eyes were full of worry. Since her eldest brother disappeared, her nephew appeared to have changed into a completely different person. When she met him this time, his temperament was especially indifferent. The flamboyant brilliance that he used to carry had long disappeared. Lu Muyen took Ling Yuzin's hand and comforted her. Mother, don't worry, everything will all get better. It seemed that after the selection trial was over, she was bound to pay a visit to the Ling clan. As for that Shui Ling who personally came to annul the engagement, hence slapping their faces, she believed that they would definitely meet in the glacial mountain range this time. Shui Ling wanted to participate in the continental tournament for hegemony and obtain the qualifications to enter a sect? As long as she was there, she'd surely let that woman lose more than her gains, pound her into the dust, and make her life worse than death. Translated product by Mayar come true. 3 days later, the team outside the imperial capital that rode on tailwind horses galloped towards the south. As it was an urgent event, the Empire Academy asked the imperial family for around a dozen tailwind horses for the students participating in the trial to ride to the glacial mountain range. The leader of the group was precisely Lan Si in blue brocade. After a day's journey, when night fell, they booked a room to rest at an inn in a remote town. After bathing, Lu Muyen went downstairs to dine with the others. When Lan Si saw her come downstairs, he patted the seat next to him, smiled and said, "Lu Muyen, come and sit." Lu Muyen was a little surprised by Lan Si's attitude towards her, but she didn't reject, walked over, and sat down naturally, then nodded and greeted the 3 instructors, Teacher Lan, Teacher Ji, Teacher Hu. Then some students came downstairs one after another. Lu Mubai walked straight towards Lu Muyen and sat down beside her. Fu Chen and Ji Hansu also sat down in the remaining seats of the same table. The other people sat at the 2 tables beside them, but the gazes of a few people that looked towards Lu Muyen weren't very kind, especially the senior Earth class female student who carried deep jealousy in her eyes. A person's position in a setting sometimes displayed the degree of attention they received and how highly they were thought of. Even if Lu Muyen wasn't a trash now, she was only the winner of the freshman Earth class, so what qualifications did she have to sit at that table? But because of the instructors and Lu Mubai, she only dared to feel upset inwardly, and didn't dare to voice her objections aloud. Lu Muyen, Ji Xian, and I need to thank you. Lan Si flipped over a teacup, poured a cup of tea, and looked at Lu Muyen with a smile in his eyes. Lu Muyen raised her eyebrow and asked, I don't remember when I ever had an interaction with Teacher Lan and Teacher Ji. She narrowed her eyes, wondering just what this Fox One wanted to do. Actually, it's not that big a deal. It's just that us instructors made a bet before the grand competition, betting on who would obtain the only place in the freshman Earth class between you and Gu Yanran. Ji Xian and I bet on you, and in the end, we won. Lan Si's handsome, pretty face revealed a smile that made people feel uncontrollably drawn to. Yeah. The stakes are small, but whether we win or lose impacts our face, which is significant. You've definitely given us a lot of face. Ji Xian's beautiful face revealed a dazzling brightness. She had a good impression of Lu Muyen. Lu Muyen looked at the 2 teachers, who appeared as if they feared that there wasn't enough chaos in the world, with a headache. Didn't they realize that Hu Fei's dark face was about to turn into ink too? Without even needing to think about it, one could guess that Hu Fei definitely bet that Gu Yanran would win. What these 2 were doing was the typical case of pulling aggro 3 for her. Then I'm really honored. But since teachers won the bet because of me, then shouldn't it be those who see have a share for? Lu Muyen smiled, as if saying if you don't give anything to me, you're not generous or sincere. She discovered that Lan Si and Ji Xian were very friendly towards her, while even though the old man named Hu Fei tried hard to hide it, she caught onto his dislike for her. Hu Fei didn't like her, so naturally she wouldn't save face for him either. Not to mention, she even felt killing intent on Hu Fei from time to time, so she was a little more cautious against him. It's a pity that we sold all the things we bet on. Lan Si chuckled, thought about it, then took out a few wooden boxes from his interspatial ring and threw them to Lu Muyen. There are a few spiritual herbs inside, take it as a meeting gift. Lu Muyen took the box unceremoniously, but didn't open it, and instead put it away. Thank you, Teacher Lan. Ji Xian also preferred such straightforward people. She took out a tourmaline bracelet and handed it to Lu Muyen, saying with a smile, this bracelet is for you. Lu Muyen didn't feign modesty either, reached out her hand and took the bracelet. With one touch, she discovered the mystery within it. It was a high-quality spirit tool. Although the quality wasn't high, but within each tourmaline, there contained a special energy which could help an alchemist reduce the consumption of mental energy when refining pills. It was indeed very useful. Thank you, Teacher Ji. Lu Muyen slid the bracelet onto her wrist then and there. The fact that Ji Xian gave her this bracelet meant that they knew of her identity as an alchemist already. They were expressing goodwill towards her. She had a good impression of Lan Si and Ji Xian, so naturally she accepted their goodwill. Except, the interaction between the 3 people were translated into a different meaning in the eyes of others. Some students at the 2 tables beside them didn't feel good about this situation. Wasn't it just that Lu Muyen was from a better family background? Was it worth it for the 2 instructors to express their goodwill like this? Teachers, isn't it those who see have a share for? Then shouldn't you also give us some meeting gifts? Ji Hansu glanced at Lu Muyen thoughtfully, then smiled and said to Lan Si and Ji Xian playfully. Lan Si raised his eyebrows and said with a smile, you also want a meeting gift? Sure, here you guys are. After saying that, he took out a handful of candy and threw a few to each of them. Teacher, you can't possibly be this stingy. You want to dismiss us with just a few candies? Ji Hansu caught the candy and complained with a smile. This is candy made from spiritual fruits. It can replenish your elemental energy during battle. If you don't want it, then return it. Lan Si's delicate and pretty face revealed a trace of playfulness. When Ji Hansu heard that the candy had such an effect, he immediately put it away happily. Of course I want it. The other people didn't expect this candy to have such an effect either and put it away as if a treasure. Lu Muyen picked up a candy and placed it in front of her nose for a sniff. An understanding crossed her eyes. Then she tossed the candy into her mouth to try its effect. The taste was rather sweet and sour, but the effect of replenishing spiritual energy was much worse than her grade 1 spiritual energy replenishing pill. Seeing Lu Mu Yen directly pick up the candy and eat, the corner of everyone's mouth, except Lu Mu Bai, twitched. Did she have to be such a prodigal? Although it's candy so it's sugar, but it had the effect of a pill. Was it really good to be this luxurious? Lu Mu Yen, this is what Teacher Lan gave us to use to replenish our elemental energy during battle. Aren't you failing his expectations by eating it just like this? The female student who won first place in the senior Earth class said. Lu Mu Yen furrowed her brows. Why did she discover that she just wasn't agreeable to women? Most of the female sword masters she had met didn't like her, but it's not like she had the face of a vixen 5 either. Was it because people were jealous of her rising to greater heights from a trash? Or was it Lan Si and Ji Xian's attitude towards her that they didn't like? Such people were truly too narrow-minded. They'd have a tough time walking on the path of the strong. Of course, if someone slapped her, it was impossible for her to show her other cheek and let them slap it too. Teacher Lan Si, did you just say that the candy is used to replenish our elemental energy in battle? Lu Mu Yen asked, blinking at Lan Si innocently. Lan Si chuckled, no. Then did you not allow us to eat the candy that you gifted us, right now? Also no. Then have I failed you by eating the candy now? You haven't. Lu Mu Yen glanced at the woman with her beautiful eyes and sneered, this senior sister, it seems that you aren't the roundworm in Teacher Lan's belly 6. You the woman didn't expect Lu Mu Yen would ask Lan Si like this. Her face flushed red, unsure if it was because she was angered or because she was shamed. This result tells you that you shouldn't pretend to be able to guess other people's thoughts. If you want to stand out, then you need to see if you have the capital to do so. Lu Mu Yen ridiculed coldly. The woman looked up and saw that there was also dissatisfaction in Lan Si's eyes. Her face paled, bit her lip and stopped talking. Then, Lu Mu Yen discovered that several of the senior students cast unkind glances at her. Her lips raised slightly in coldness. It was best to separate from these people when they reached the glacial mountain range. Translated product by Mayar Come True. After eating, Lu Mu Yen saw the crescent moon that hung in the sky. Currently, at the location of the small town they were in, the essence of the sun and moon were the densest. She leapt out from her window and onto the rooftop. She sat cross-legged where it was darkest, closed her eyes and performed a macrocosmic orbit skill that coursed around her body, absorbing the essence of the moonlight. 2 hours later, she discovered that someone arrived on the roof. Her hands danced in midair like butterfly wings, waiting for the macrocosmic orbiting skill to be completed. When she opened her eyes, she met Qi Yixian's black eyes that carried complex colors. The moonlight poured on his cold facial features, softening his face a little bit. Need something? Lu Mu Yen didn't look away, only looking at Qi Yixian indifferently. Qi Yixian suddenly had the urge to hold Lu Mu Yen in his arms. When he was practicing right now, he accidentally discovered that there was Lu Mu Yan's aura on the rooftop, so came up as if he was controlled by something. And what entered his eyes was a graceful woman with her eyes closed, breathing beneath the moonlight, her hands dancing as part of a skill, and a thin, white, soft light enveloped her, giving her a kind of cold and ethereal feel that he had never seen before. Mu Yen, can we discuss something? What do I have to discuss with you? Lu Mu Yen smiled with ridicule. The colors in Qi Yixian's eyes were clear to her. This man fell in love with her. But so what? She was no longer the Lu Mu Yen she used to be. Must we choke each other like this when we talk? Qi Yixian couldn't help but furrow his brows. Since when did Lu Mu Yen change her docile personality towards him to constantly fighting against him? It seemed that it was since Gu Yan Ran injured her. Lu Mu Yen didn't want to be entangled with Qi Yixian too much. Clearing things up was good, so she nodded, speak. Can we go back to how we were? Qi Yixian pressed his lips together tightly, his jawline clearly defined. Cannot. Why? Are you still blaming me for not preventing Gu Yan Ran from injuring you last time? The veins on Qi Yixian's hands that were hidden in his sleeves popped as his palms were full of sweat. Lu Mu Yen raised her eyebrow and said, you know, and you still ask? This man definitely had a problem. Last time you targeted her first. I don't know when your temper became so unreasonable. Last time she taught you a lesson, I didn't do anything not because I supported her, but because I wanted you to be more thoughtful after experiencing that. Qi Yixian's expression was stained with a layer of helpless sadness. At the time, it's true he didn't stop Gu Yan Ran from teaching Lu Mu Yen a lesson. But when Lu Mu Yan's Dantian was almost destroyed by Gu Yan Ran, he was about to act, except Yun Jin was one step ahead. It was true that he used to find it bothersome to be pestered by Lu Mu Yen, but they essentially grew up together since they were children, so he wouldn't watch her be beaten to death. It was just that he didn't expect that when he fell in love with her now, that incident would cause an irreparable gap between them. When I was unconscious last time, that soul-condensing pill was sent by you? Seeing that the helplessness in Qi Yixian's eyes when speaking about the incident wasn't fake, Lu Mu Yen suddenly remembered that she had relied on that soul-condensing pill to merge all of her into this body, so she took a guess and asked. After waking up last time, she asked her grandfather and the others about the soul-condensing pill, but they all hesitated. Not long ago, the Lu clan even inexplicably helped the Qi clan find a rare crystal. At the time, she felt that something was strange. The most important thing was that there were only 2 clans in the entire imperial capital who had a soul-condensing pill, and the Qi clan was one of them. The other clan and the Lu clan had a bad relationship, so it was impossible for them to take out such a precious pill for her. Grandpa Lu said it? Qi Yixian didn't want to use the situation of the pill to seek any rewards from Lu Muyen, so he never mentioned it in front of her. I guessed. Lu Muyen half closed her eyes, covering up the change in her eyes. She really didn't expect Qi Yixian actually helped her once. If it weren't for that soul-condensing pill, even if the previous Lu Muyen had willingly offered her body to her, her soul wouldn't have been able to merge so perfectly with this body. Count this as me owing you a personal favor. Lu Muyen said after a long silence. What the previous Lu Muyen did for Qi Yixian was more than what a soul-condensing pill could be used to repay, so she would repay this personal favor, but to Qi Yixian, it was just a personal favor. No need. I never thought to make you pay back that favor. Anger slowly rose on Qi Yixian's face. He also didn't know why, at the time, he would send his family's precious soul-condensing pill, that was rewarded to him, to the Lu clan. Maybe because he felt he owed her a lot, but at the time, he was certain he hadn't fallen in love with Lu Muyen yet. Right now, he didn't want Lu Muyen's return of favor for giving her the pill. He only wanted her, nothing more. But he didn't want to say it, afraid that it would scare her away. If I owe it, I owe it. Whether you want it or not, I'll remember the favor and will eventually return it to you. She hated owing favors, not to mention a favor from Qi Yixian who had once hurt the original owner of this body, so whether this man wanted it or not, she would repay it. Must you really be so distant with me? Qi Yixian suddenly stepped forward and half-squatted in front of Lu Muyen, with a trace of anger in his eyes. Lu Muyen didn't avoid him, and met his fiery gaze coldly. Are we familiar? Then what was your affection for me before? Just because of a past event, are you going to completely erase our affections? Qi Yixian couldn't accept the indifference and coldness in Lu Muyen's eyes, as if they had really become strangers. Lu Muyen raised her head and let out a soft laugh, then stared at Qi Yixian and said, the feelings I had for you, did you accept it? No. Have we ever had love between us? Even more, no. So, Qi Yixian, don't imagine that your love's being reciprocated. When I genuinely liked you, you didn't cherish it, now that I hate you, you come to pester me. You really are looking for pain. Lu Muyen raised her hand and pushed Qi Yixian, who had gotten close to her, away. She didn't like men who were strangers to be so close to herself and hoped even more that this man would stop pestering her, so her tone was very awful. Qi Yixian took a deep breath and resisted the urge to strangle this cruel woman. A little madness appeared on his face. Yes, I'm looking for pain. I admit that I like you now. Then he suddenly stretched out his hand and grabbed Lu Muyen's beautiful wrist, his eyes firm and eager, saying, Muyen, can you give me a chance? The corner of Lu Muyen's lips curled up, then approached Qi Yixian's ear. Her red lips uttered cruel words, instantly shattering all of Qi Yixian's illusions and hopes. Can't. There is absolutely no possibility between us. Even if I die, I won't choose you again. Lu Muyen, you're truly ruthless. Qi Yixian turned his head and a faint fragrance of medicine lingered around his nose from Lu Muyen. Finally unable to control himself, he pulled hard and wanted to hug this woman, who he loved and hated, tightly in his arms. Except, before the person was pulled closer, Lu Muyen flexibly pulled her wrist out of his grip, out of his control. She looked at him with an unhappy expression and said something that made him heartbroken, you were asking for everything. If you want to look for pain, then do it yourself secretly. I don't have time to be entangled with you. Translated product by Mayar Come True. Oh you Muyen. Qi Yixian couldn't help but shout grimly with countless emotions surging in his eyes. He had never been rejected like this before, and he wanted to turn around and leave immediately. This was the first time he had been embarrassed like this. But he was afraid. He was afraid that if he left, there really wouldn't be any more possibilities between him and Lu Muyen. He had always been calm and wise, but ever since falling in love with Lu Muyen, she had broken all his rationality. Remembering how Lu Muyen used to love so humbly in front of him, and silently did things for him, yet he was so dismissive of such feelings, and now that they had changed positions, he realized how bad he treated her then. I'll treat you well in the future. I promise. Qi Yixian was reluctant to let go and couldn't let go anymore. During this period of time, Lu Muyen's beautiful purple figure often appeared in his mind. How she affected his heart and made him fall for her. After experiencing true love, how could he retrieve it? I don't need it. Qi Yixian, just stand there and clear your mind. Lu Muyen took a step back, raised her eyes and looked at him seriously, saying word by word, we will never be able to. Just give up. As soon as she finished speaking, she utilized the spiritual energy in her body and left the room in a flash, leaving only Qi Yixian standing there, motionless, with deep regret and pain. Early the next morning, when the sky was faintly lit, Lan Si took the dozen or so people on their tailwind horses and galloped away. Half a month later, Lu Muyen and her party finally arrived at the glacial city that was at the foot of the glacial mountain range. The glacial city was an independent city, not belonging to any country, but was instead controlled by a mysterious entity. Many years ago, other empires or distinguished clans wanted to get involved with this city and take over, but were all suppressed, and suffered a tragic blow. After that, no one dared to reach their hands towards Glacial City. The Glacial City was located on the southeast side of the Glacial Mountain Range. If one wanted to enter the Glacial Mountain Range, they must pass Glacial City. Therefore, the prosperity of Glacial City wasn't worse than the capital of a small country. The towering city walls encircled Glacial City. Pairs of armored soldiers patrolled the city, and security teams were set up at particular sections of the city to maintain order. At the gate of the city stood 2 rows of well-trained soldiers whose cultivation bases were all above sword apprentice. The small team's leader was even an advanced phase great sword master. When the group rode their horses to the city gate, they stopped. There was a checkpoint there. If one wanted to enter Glacial City, they must pay the entrance fee. Of course, after paying the fee, the lives of everyone in Glacial City were guaranteed. Fighting wasn't allowed in the city, and if one violated the rules, they'd be killed without pardon. The entrance fee is 10 ink gold coins per person. A soldier in white armor stopped the group of people and said emotionlessly. Lan Si threw the bag of ink gold coins that he had prepared previously over. Can we enter now? The man opened the money bag, poured the ink gold coins on the counter, then took out a dozen or so notices from the desk and handed them over. You may enter. These are the city's rules and must be followed. Lan Si took the notices, glanced at it casually, then waved to the others, let's go. After entering the city, what one saw first was the bustling streets, while the buildings were also very distinctive. The top of each grey brick building was conical, and it was said to be convenient for placing spars that helped preserve heat. The crowd swarmed along the way, extremely lively, and from time to time, one could hear the sound of hawking one. They rode slowly across several main streets and checked in at an inn with an elegant and quiet environment. Teacher, does the Imperial family's team also live in this inn? Ji Han-su was more cheerful and talked the most along the way. Lan Si handed out the keys of the rooms to everyone, looked up and said, no, they live elsewhere. Well, meet them at the Glacial Mountain Range. Does teacher know which inn they're living in? Ji Han-su pursued. Lan Si raised his eyebrow, what do you want to do? I have something personal to find Yungu for. Ji Han-su touched his head with a smile. You don't need to conceal your little thoughts. When you reach the Glacial Mountain Range, whether you team up with the students of this academy or team up with the Empire's trial team, we won't interfere, as long as you don't cause any deaths. Lan Si paused and smiled thoughtfully, but there are only 6 trial places, you should all seize the opportunity. Teacher, didn't the principal tell us, as Empire Academy students, to team up together against the outsiders? A senior student from the Heaven class asked in confusion. The corner of Lan Si's mouth curled into a meaningful arc and asked, do you think the 11 of you can unite as one? He already knew that the person who had asked this question had already formed a secret alliance with several other students, and they were rejecting of Lu Muyen. Since they didn't like Lu Muyen, naturally it'd be impossible for Lu Mubai and Qi Yixian to cooperate with them. That's the person glanced at Lu Muyen in his peripheral vision. She was highly likely to hold everyone back, but because they were afraid of Lu Mu by rejecting, he wanted to reply that he could, but the female student in the Earth class tugged his sleeves, so he stopped and made himself look as if he was thinking. Lu Muyen pursed her lips. These people were this rejecting of her, but she didn't want to participate in the trials with them even more. When the time came, who knew who'd hold everyone back? Enough, I don't think you guys can unite. Just form a team freely, and you can even act alone. Lan Si truly couldn't be impressed with the judgment of these people. But that was fine. If these few people, who would hold people back, weren't there, Lu Muyen would have a better chance to advance. Well, listen to teacher. Ji Han-su agreed with a wide grin. Of course he didn't want to join forces with the other people from the academy. Among the 11 people, he only thought highly of Lu Mubai and Fu Chen. But amongst the two, one of them would definitely bring Lu Muyen, while the other was accustomed to being independent, so there wasn't a possibility of alliance at all. These are the rules of the Glacial City. Take it and have a good look. Don't violate any rules, otherwise even I won't be able to protect you. Lan Si stuffed the notices in their hands with a serious expression. Yes. Tomorrow morning, we'll leave for the Glacial Mountain Range. You're free this evening. You can go wander around Glacial City. There are many mercenaries and businessmen here, maybe you'll have some unexpected gains. You're dismissed. Lan Si instructed them a bit then left with the other 2 instructors first. Lu Muyen held the key and went upstairs with Lu Mubai. The others also left one after another, leaving only 4 people standing. It seems that the strongest students have their allied teams already. One of the 4 said with worry. What are you afraid of? They still have to fight the Empire's trial team. When the Sandpiper and the Clam fight, the fisherman gains too. We may still have a chance. The male student, who previously asked Lan Si the question, said with calculating eyes. The other 3 smiled in understanding. That's right, until the very last moment, the result wasn't clear. Qi Luxiang, the only female senior student among them, and who was also the senior Earth class winner, looked in the direction of Lu Muyen's departure and resentment flashed past her eyes. She and Gu Yan grew up together and were like close sisters, but very few people knew about it. This time she wouldn't only compete for a trial place, but she would also avenge Gu Yan. She deliberately confronted Lu Muyen before in order to reduce the defensiveness of several people towards her. After all, showing recklessness and brainlessness was also a good cover. At the same time, in the Ming Alliance of Merchants main hall, on the main seat, a man who wore red clothes and a silver mask sat indolently. After listening to the report of the person in the lower seat of priority, his long and narrow eyes squinted, and he said softly, the Glacial Mountain Range? Let's go and join the fun too. Yes, Your Highness. Translated product by Mayar Come True. What? After Lu Muyen returned to her room, she washed up. Seeing that it was still early, she went to invite Lu Mubai for a stroll around Glacial City. Except when they arrived downstairs, they met Qi Yixian. Brother Lu, Muyen. Qi Yixian walked to the 2 and greeted them, you 2 are going out? Yes. We're going out for a stroll. Lu Mubai nodded lightly. He didn't like Qi Yixian, but he wouldn't reject him too much because of the situation with the soul-condensing pill. On Qi Yixian's handsome face, there revealed a rare smile. I was just about to go out too, let's go together. It's better to separate. Lu Mubai furrowed his brows slightly. I'm alone, I think it's best to go together. Qi Yixian had made up his mind to redeem Lu Muyen, so said insistently. Lu Mubai glanced at Qi Yixian lightly and found that his attitude was firm. His brows knitted even tighter together. He didn't know how his younger sister felt about Qi Yixian right now, so he looked at Lu Muyen and asked, what do you think, little sister? Whatever he wants. Lu Muyen knew that even if she refused Qi Yixian, this man that had suddenly gone crazy would still follow, so it was better to just let him. Lu Mubai saw the impatience in his younger sister's eyes and knew that she had truly cut and abandoned her love for Qi Yixian. So he didn't care about Qi Yixian's attitude, and instead, he felt that this situation was fine as it let him have a taste of how it felt to desire yet not be able to obtain. When they left the inn, Lu Muyen asked Lu Mubai, eldest brother, where's the place the teacher spoke of? That, I know. Qi Yixian said before Lu Mubai could speak, there's a large market in Glacial City. Aside from the permanent shops, many mercenaries or outsiders will rent stalls to sell things gathered from the glacial mountain range, like demonic beasts, spiritual herbs, spiritual stones, and the like. Are there a lot of spiritual herbs? As an alchemist, Lu Muyen naturally paid more attention to spiritual herbs. A lot. But there are very few high-level spiritual herbs. But if you're lucky, you might meet some. Qi Yixian's tone was rather relaxed. He was fairly familiar with Glacial City. I've been here once, and I was able to buy the rare ice herb in the markets. It was precisely because of that ice herb that the alchemist enshrined by the family was able to refine the soul-condensing pill. Ice herb? That's not that bad. Let's go and take a look. Lu Muyen liked to study the path of alchemy back in the spirit world, and loved spiritual herbs even more, so she was rather excited for the market Qi Yixian spoke of. Alright. Qi Yixian agreed with a light smile. Lu Muyen discovered that the Qi Yixian that had removed his aloofness seemed to be a completely different person. But this wasn't that important to her. She owed Qi Yixian a personal favor, but once she repaid it, she believed that there wouldn't be too much interaction between them. When the three arrived at the market, night had arrived, and the night market just opened. The market was brightly lit, crowded with people, and sword masters wearing various different styles of clothes came and went. The atmosphere was extremely lively. When one walked through the gate of the market, one could see two passages. One of them lead to permanent shops, while the other lead to the free trade zone. There are a lot of spiritual herbs and spiritual stones from the glacial mountain range in the permanent shops, but the price might be a bit higher. If you wanted to try your luck and hunt for treasure, the free trade zone's more appropriate. Seeing that Lu Muyen was staring at the two paths in thought, Qi Yixian pointed to the one on the right and spoke. Lu Muyen nodded, then let's head to the free trade zone first. The three of them walked through the passage on the right. After entering the free trade zone, they heard a mixture of noise. There were stallholders shouting and selling, and there were buyers who were bargaining. In short, it was an extremely lively scene. Lu Muyen remembered that Mo Yen, in her spirit pet Bengal, had a keen eye, so she took him out and carried him in her arm to hunt for treasure. She started looking at the first booth with great interest, while Lu Mubai and Qi Yixian followed behind her. When she saw something she was interested in, she picked it up and bargained with the stall owner. If it was suitable, she'd take it. After looking through half the stalls, the three of them all gained a lot. Lu Muyen even bought a lot of spiritual herbs needed for refining pills, and Mo Yen also found several materials useful for refining magic tools. Eldest brother, Muyen. The three of them were just looking at spars at a stall when they heard Yunlan's voice from behind. Cousin. Lu Muyen saw Yunlan walking towards them, and a gentle smile rose on her face. Yixian, why are you here? Seeing that Qi Yixian and Lu Muyen were together, Yunjin felt a little strange, so he stepped forward and patted him on the shoulder, asking. Qi Yixian didn't conceal anything, seeing that his friend had asked, him accompanying brother Lu and Muyen for a look around. Accompanying Muyen? Have you two reconciled? Hearing Qi Yixian say that, Yunjin's eyes dulled. An inexplicable irritability rose in his heart, so he couldn't help but ask. Yunjin, you can eat whatever food you want, but you can't say whatever you want one. Lu Muyen looked askance at Yunjin. What did he mean by reconciled? She didn't want to continue to have anything to do with Qi Yixian, nor be branded by him at all. Qi Yixian's eyes darkened, but he didn't explain. Since he was determined to obtain Lu Muyen, then he had to show some sincerity. When Yunjin heard Lu Muyen say this, he didn't know why, but his mood was instantly healed. He didn't say anything more on this topic with them either. Yunlan glanced at Qi Yixian surreptitiously, and seeing the dejected look on his face, a slight arc rose on his lips, then he retracted his gaze. Did you guys gain anything? Yunlan asked Lu Muyen with softness in his eyes. Lu Muyen smiled and said, it was alright. I bought some spiritual herbs, but we didn't encounter anything special. How about you guys? We also didn't buy anything rare. We were about to go look in the commercial street. Yunlan said. Then you guys can go to the commercial street, well finish shopping here first. Lu Muyen had a constant feeling that if she left this free trade zone, she'd miss something significant. Yunjin leaned forward with a smile and said, how about together, well wander around again. Let's go together. I also have something I want to tell you guys. Yunlan did indeed have something to discuss with Lu Muyen and Lu Mubai. Alright, let's go. Well, talk while we walk. Lu Muyen reckoned that Yunlan probably came to find them about an alliance. After walking for a while, Yunlan lowered his head beside Lu Muyen and whispered, let's form an alliance for the trial in the glacial mountain range. Sure. Lu Muyen agreed without hesitation. She wasn't familiar with the glacial mountain range, and she much preferred to advance and obtain a trial place with people she knew, so she didn't reject the proposal of an alliance. Yunlan didn't expect her to agree too readily. There was joy in his eyes. Then, seeing some ruckus occurring in front, with even the word treasure thrown about, he pointed, let's take a look. The rest were also attracted by the ruckus and walked over there together. As soon as they approached, they heard someone say to the stall owner, do you have a delusional disorder? For this broken thing to be traded with a tier 5 or even higher level demonic beast skin, aren't you just indulging in a wild fantasy? This sort of thing's also considered a treasure? What a waste of our time. That's right. Only the spars beside it are alright, but you want to sell it as a bundle, and you even want to exchange it with a demonic beast skin. It's not like we're foolish spenders. Quickly squeeze through and take a look. Mo Yan's voice that carried with it a bit of eagerness sounded in Lu Mu Yan's sea of consciousness. When she lowered her head, she saw her little beast's eyes glowing brightly. An understanding smile rose on her lips, and she quickly squeezed through. Translated product by Mayar Come True. A popular saying. After Lu Mu Yan squeezed through, she saw a sloppy middle-aged man with a stall in front of him. On the stall was a pile of spars that were suitable for refining magic tools. Among them was a palm-sized dark gray stone that caught her attention. Buy that dark gray stone. You must buy it. Mo Yan's eager voice resounded in her sea of consciousness. Lu Mu Yan gently poked the little beast on his back with her finger, indicating that she knew. After listening carefully to the conversations around her, Lu Mu Yan obtained some useful information from their words. This middle-aged man wanted to trade the spar on the table, but he required the dark gray stone to be the main item of trade. More importantly, he only wanted a demonic beast skin of tier 5 or higher. Those that didn't know the value of the gray stone all thought the man was just indulging in a wild fantasy. The spar's qualities were all quite good, so it attracted a lot of people's attention, but it was a pity that the man simply wouldn't yield, so after so long, the things on the stall still hadn't been traded out. Lu Mu Yan held back the look in her eyes, reached out and picked up the dark gray stone in her hand to play with, then asked casually, what kind of spar is this? She had observed from the look of the man that even he didn't know the origin of this stone, that's why she asked this question. The middle-aged man raised his head and glanced at Lu Mu Yan impatiently, don't know. You don't know and you still want to trade this for such a high-level demonic beast skin? Xiao Ziong, who had followed Lu Mu Yan in squeezing through, couldn't help but cut in. The look on the man's face was even more impatient, and he said with a very bad tone, I've said it many times. I can feel that this stone's extraordinary, so I want to trade it. You can believe it or not. If you want to trade, then stay, if you don't, then put the stone back and get lost. If it weren't that a spirit treasure he was refining required a high-level demonic beast skin, he wouldn't take out these materials that were used for smithing to trade. Especially the dark gray stone. It always gave him a mysterious and unpredictable feel. These ignorant people asking these questions really made him annoyed. What's with your attitude? Yu Xiao Ziong wanted to say more, but Lu Mu Yan turned her head to stop him with her gaze. I want your pile of spars. Lu Mu Yan played with the dark gray stone in one hand, and with the other, she pointed to the pile of spars of varying colors on the table. Xiao Ziong glared at Lu Mu Yan speechless. This woman was truly a prodigal lady. Hearing Lu Mu Yan's words, the middle-aged man thought she just wanted to buy the spars on the table like the people before, so he said with a poor attitude, I don't sell individual spars. If you want it, you need to trade me a tier 5 demonic beast skin. I only sell the stone you're holding. Lu Mu Yan wasn't angry at the man's attitude. Having to consistently repeat things he had been saying was frustrating for sure. She chuckled and nodded casually, I only want the spars on your table, but since you want to sell it like that, that's fine. Ill trade. Hearing Lu Mu Yan's words, the man raised his head and looked at her squarely, with a hint of brilliance in his eyes. It wasn't the brilliance of seeing a beauty, but it was the excitement of obtaining a demonic beast skin he wanted. Then give me a tier 5 demonic beast skin. Preferably fire attribute. The man said with a rare, pleasant tone. The corner of Lu Mu Yan's eyes twitched. This man sure had many demands. However, a smith having a strange temperament was normal. After all, having to deal with fire day in day out, fire poison would accumulate in their body, which naturally meant it would affect their temperament. Therefore, many smiths were very irritable. Eldest brother, contribute a tier 5 demonic beast for use. Lu Mu Yan knew that Lu Mu Bai had the corpse of a tier 5 demonic beast, so she asked with a big smile. Lu Mu Bai didn't know why his younger sister wanted this pile of spars. He felt that she cared more about the gray stone in her hand, but he was unconditional in pampering his younger sister, so he took out a tier 5 water crocodile's corpse and said, I don't have a fire attribute demonic beast corpse, only a water attribute corpse. The middle-aged man looked at the corpse of the water crocodile on the floor with furrowed brows. His eyes revealed a bit of conflicting emotions. If the spirit treasure he refined could obtain a fire attribute demonic beast skin, then it could be even better, but materials were scarce right now, so he could only make do. Just when the middle-aged man wanted to agree, a female's voice rang from the crowd. This young miss wants that pile of spars and that dark gray stone. Then, everyone saw a tender and beautiful woman in a red dress with an arrogant and domineering attitude walk towards them after leading a few people to drive the onlookers away. You have a tier 5 fire attribute demonic beast skin? The middle-aged man retracted his gaze on the water crocodile and looked up at the woman who opened her mouth. Of course. The woman raised her chin proudly. Hey, aren't you too unfair? Obviously this was something we ordered first, and we already gave you the demonic beast's corpse, but you actually want to back out. Xiao Ziong had long felt that the middle-aged man was unpleasant, and now he was angered. The middle-aged man glanced at Xiao Ziong and said, didn't we just fail the transaction? I need fire attribute materials. Now that there is, why should I choose the water attribute demonic beast skin that I could just barely use? Of course, I, Hua Xiao, am not a villain. I'll compensate you with some spars for free in a bit. He indeed went back on his word, so it was nothing to compensate some spars to these little children. When Lu Muyen heard Hua Xiao's words, a look of surprise flashed across her eyes, then she had a plan in her heart. Take out the skin of your fire attribute tier 5 demonic beast for a look. Hua Xiao turned his head to the red-clothed woman and said with an attitude that didn't appear too enthusiastic. With a thought, a fire attribute crimson fox appeared on the ground. Hua Xiao crouched down and took a look. The crimson fox was a bit small, but given that the demonic skin was of the fire attribute, it was more suitable for him than the water crocodile. Can you still take out a fire attribute demonic beast skin? If you can't, then I'll trade with her. Hua Xiao was actually not that satisfied with the crimson fox as he wanted a scaled demonic beast, so he looked at Lu Muyen and asked, though rather hopelessly, Pfft. The red-clothed woman sneered, with disdain in her eyes. If she could take it out, she would have taken it out a long time ago. Isn't it unnecessary to ask? The woman in red looked askance at Lu Muyen, and when she moved her gaze to the white demonic beast she was holding, an understanding flashed across her eyes. She also decided to buy the pile of spars and that inconspicuous dark gray stone because the fire cloud mink in her spirit pet bangle called attention to it. Although she didn't know what sort of stone it was, but she knew that sometimes the more inconspicuous something was, the more of a treasure it was. You, hurry up and bring that gray stone over. Xianing Xian, the woman in red, pointed her finger at Lu Muyen with slight contempt on her face. Lu Muyen's eyes turned cold. Who said I don't want it anymore? Lu Muyen shook the stone in between her two fingers in front of the crowd, and said lazily, today, I'm definitely taking this. Your tone sure isn't soft. If you take out an even higher level fire attribute demonic beast corpse, then why shouldn't this young miss let you? Xianing Xian's eyes were full of disdain. Even she only owned this one tier 5 demonic beast corpse, so she didn't believe at all that this woman in front of her could take out the corpse of a tier 6 demonic beast. Let me? Do I need you to let me? Lu Muyen raised her eyebrow and sneered. You really have the skin of a fire attribute demonic beast? You better not be teasing me. Xianing Xian snorted coldly, then take it out. She hated women who were more beautiful than herself. The surrounding crowd didn't believe that Lu Muyen could take out an even higher level fire attribute demonic beast. So some people yelled in agreement. Let's not talk about a higher level demonic beast. I'm afraid that she couldn't even take out another tier 5 fire attribute demonic beast's corpse. That's right, she even asked her elder brother for the water crocodile just now. For a moment, the surroundings became livelier. Xianing Xian hugged her arms, displaying a high, arrogant posture, certain that Lu Muyen couldn't take out the skin of a fire attribute demonic beast. Lu Mubai furrowed his brows and looked at Xianing Xian. He had already guessed her identity in his heart, but he didn't object to his younger sister going against her. As for Yunlan and the others, they only had curiosity in their hearts. Lu Muyen had given them too many surprises, and this time, they also inexplicably believed that she wasn't just talking irresponsibly. But how did she obtain a demonic beast corpse with the strength equivalent to that of a sword monarch? The Lu clan didn't have any sword monarch experts at all. Lu Muyen didn't care about the discussions occurring about her. She originally had some uses for the tier 6 flame unicorn beast's corpse, but she could only give it up for the stone that Mo Yen wanted. However, taking advantage of her wasn't that easy. With a thought, she moved the corpse of the flame unicorn beast that Ming Xiu had killed onto the ground, but she had already taken away its blood essence and its horn a long time ago. A pressuring fire attribute demonic beast's aura spread throughout the air. The flame unicorn beast died not long ago, so the heavy pressure of a high-level demonic beast had yet to dissipate, though it had been weakened. However, it still caused the people around them to pale with fright. What? It's actually a flame unicorn beast of peak phase tier 6 strength. Those who came to explore the glacial mountain range wouldn't be that weak, so someone in the crowd recognized the corpse of the demonic beast on the ground. A flame unicorn of peak phase tier 6 strength? No way, that's equivalent to the strength of a sword sovereign expert. My eyes aren't blurry, are they? To be able to see a tier 6 flame unicorn beast in my living years, it truly was worthwhile to come. Meanwhile, Hua Xiao's eyes stared, transfixed, on the corpse of the demonic beast. He eagerly walked to the flame unicorn beast's corpse and squatted down. He stroked it a few times with his shaking hands, as if cherishing a prized work of art. Xianing Xian also revealed a look of disbelief. She naturally knew what sort of existence the tier 6 flame unicorn beast was. She looked at Lu Muyen, who was calm and composed, with conflict ion in her eyes. She was confused what exactly was the origin of this woman. She was the young miss, born from the main wife, raised by the Xian clan, one of the 10 distinguished clans in the eastern region. She had the capital to be arrogant, but she wasn't stupid. Until she knew the identity of the woman opposite her, she wouldn't do anything against her on the surface for the time being. She sure didn't want to offend a stronger force than the Xian clan for a mysterious stone. Not only were the outsiders stupefied, but even Yunlan and the others were shocked. What was happening here? How could Lu Muyen possess the corpse of a flame unicorn beast equivalent to the strength of a sword sovereign? Translated product by Lu Muyen was satisfied that Huashao had followed the direction her words wanted to take him. Seeing that almost all the people around them looked at her with the same "you're a fool" look, her lips rose into a meaningful smile. These people didn't know the value of the dark gray stone. If they knew, they'd find that the corpse of a flame unicorn beast couldn't be compared to it. But she definitely wasn't kind enough to explain the wonders of this stone's use. Alright, I won't make a fuss about how you changed your mind previously. So I'll use 1/5 of the flame unicorn beast's corpse to exchange for this stone and those spars. Lu Muyen kept holding the rock in her hand. On the surface, she appeared as if she didn't care, but she was actually afraid of it being snatched by others. 1/5? That's a little too less. Huashao's eyes widened. After seeing an entire flame unicorn beast, how could he bear to give it up? Lu Muyen chuckled softly, smiling exceptionally radiantly. 1/5 is already a lot. 1/5 of the corpse of my flame unicorn beast is already larger than that crimson fox. Speaking of, it seems I'm the one that's suffering a loss. Of course, if you feel that you're suffering a loss, then I'm too lazy to bother with you anymore. Just go trade with that young Mississippi. Lu Muyen displayed a nonchalant and indifferent gesture, throwing the dark gray stone she was playing with back to Huashao. Huashao suddenly felt that the stone that he previously considered a treasure had become a burning problem. In terms of size and value, 1/5 of the corpse of the flame unicorn beast from this purple-clothed woman was indeed far better than the red-clothed woman's crimson fox. How could one choose copper coins after seeing gold coins? He wasn't that stupid to lose something big because of something small. But this woman sure remembered her grudges well. She still remembered how he wanted to back out earlier. Can we discuss it a bit more? You can use 1/5 of the flame unicorn beast's corpse to trade for my stone and the spars, but I want to discuss with you about the remainder of the corpse. Huashao pondered deeply, then decided that he would take out all the good things he had accumulated to see if he could trade them for the entire flame unicorn beast's corpse from this woman. Lu Muyen raised an eyebrow as she stroked her chin under Huashao's nervous gaze, then said leisurely after a while of silence, I'm in a good mood today, so discussing with you is fine. But this isn't the place to talk. No worries, well, go wherever you think is appropriate. Huashao's face brightened and said with haste and urgency. As long as she was willing to talk, then there was still a chance. Lu Muyen glanced at him with disdain, put away the flame unicorn beast on the ground, then nodded and said, then let's go. Huashao packed away all the spars from the stall, thought a little, then stuffed the dark gray stone quickly into Lu Muyen's hands, as if afraid she would go back on her words. This stone's counted as a deposit, you take it first. Aren't you afraid of me running away with it? Lu Muyen concealed the smile in her eyes. Everything was under her control. Why should I be afraid? I absolutely believe in your credibility. Mississippi. Huashao's unshaven face pulled a smile that he thought was very sincere. He had never done such condescending things in his life, but for the flame unicorn beast's corpse, he'd bear it. Lu Muyen took the stone slowly and nodded, all right. I'll temporarily accept this stone since you're pleasing to the eye. I'll return it if we don't come to an agreement. The others that heard this were completely speechless. Where was this stall owner pleasing to the eye? He had such a sloppy look, with clothes stained with soil. It seemed that she wasn't only just a foolish spender, but her eyes weren't good either. Of course, well, agree, how could we not come to an agreement? Huashao said immediately. Even if he couldn't get the remaining flame unicorn beast's corpse, he'd still take that 1/5. Then are you still going to trade with another? That young miss is still waiting for your reply. Lu Muyen looked at Xianing Xian, who had a grim expression, and asked Huashao with a smile. She was very vengeful. She still remembered how this woman wanted to snatch her things arrogantly just now, and also her act of pointing her finger at her. Not to mention she had a feeling that in the future, she'd inevitably forge a huge feud with the woman. Since that was the case, then it didn't hurt to offend her more right now. Her intuition had always been rather accurate, and because of this keen sense of foresight, she had escaped numerous catastrophes before. Young miss, please put your crimson fox away now. She indeed took out a corpse of a demonic beast that was higher in tier than yours, so you didn't lose unjustly. Huashao pointed to the crimson fox's corpse on the ground, and there was some irreverence in his eyes. Xianing Xian took a deep breath and suppressed the anger in her heart. She glanced at Lu Muyen with an obscure, cold look, put away the crimson fox, then quickly left with the people she brought. After leaving the markets, Xianing Xian's face was as grim as ink, and she ordered a man beside her, go and investigate that woman. A viciousness flashed past in her eyes. If that woman's background was stronger than hers, then she'd swallow this for the time being. But if that woman was just a small clan's pupil, then she'd slowly play her to death. Yes, third young miss. Lu Muyen looked thoughtfully in the direction Xianing Xian left and was even more determined to find the deep orchid in the glacial mountain range. She must quickly refine the foundation establishment pill and improve her strength. After leaving the free trade zone, Lu Muyen smiled and asked the others, how about we go to the commercial stores to have a look? She wanted to collect more spiritual herbs in case of any emergency in the future. Little sister has the say. Lu Mubei's indifferent eyes displayed a bit of pampering. He wouldn't ask Lu Muyen where she obtained the flame unicorn beast. As long as his younger sister was fine, then he'd be satisfied. Yunlan and the others wanted to go to the commercial area to have a look to begin with, so they naturally wouldn't refuse. Only Huashao looked miserable, but he didn't dare to offend this little grandaunt one before him, so he could only tag along with them. After the few people left, the crowd of onlookers gradually dispersed. Some of them also secretly ordered others to investigate Lu Muyen's background. Truth be told, Lu Muyen didn't really want to take out the corpse of the flame unicorn beast to trade with Huashao so ostentatiously. Except, after that woman interfered, and for Mo Yan's need of that stone, she could only show off a little. As for the consequences of taking out the flame unicorn beast, she had already thought about it. The marrow cleansing pill had already been known to every Onetta. Didn't she have a mysterious master? It didn't matter to put more responsibility onto her master. She believed that those people who secretly investigated her would definitely attribute her possession of the flame unicorn beast to that master. Speaking of master, Ming Xiu's figure suddenly flashed through Lu Mu Yan's mind. Her lips raised in a merry arc. Who knew what that devilish man's reaction would be if he knew that she traded the flame unicorn beast so casually? She reached out her hand and rubbed the ice bangle on her wrist. This bangle truly gave her a weird feeling. There seemed to be a sliver of connection between her and it, yet it also seemed that there was none, drawing them together yet not quite. This ice bangle was definitely extraordinary, but she hadn't found the trick to unseal it, or maybe she couldn't establish a deeper connection because she was still too weak. If she could meet Ming Xiu again, she could definitely ask him. She always had a feeling of spiritual harmony with this ice bangle, so she really wanted to know its secret.